Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Kalika and you're going to be a better person after watching this video. I should let a woman go in front of me because she is an elder. Okay, so a little backstory. I have lived in Mexico for about 3 years. I am 13 coming 14 and I hate when people say I should listen to them because they are adults. So this is what happened. I was in a queue for the till at a local Mexican supermarket when this older, maybe around 60 American lady came behind me. She coughed in my ear. A kind of, I'm here, listen to me cough. Do you get what I mean? So I turned around and this is what went down. Lady, aren't you going to let me go in front? I was here way before you, but if you're in a hurry then I can move. Excuse me? I am an elder and you're a child, so if I want to go in front then you have to move. I turn around and ignore her. You know what I hate? I have lived in Mexico for a whole month and these young tourists come in and think they are the bosses of this country. I have lived in Mexico for 3 years. I love Mexico because here the kids know and respect their elders. They aren't bratty like you. Kids today have no respect. I cannot believe what she is saying, so this is where I say something and quite angry, I must add. Just because I am a younger human being doesn't mean I have to do anything somebody else says. I am a human just like you. I am not moving. Again, I turn around and ignore her. I hear her whisper behind me. Young kids today are all brats. These parents don't teach decent polite behaviour and they are not fit to be parents. If I see your parents, then I will tell them to beat you hard once you get home. I get to the till, and in broken English she told me that this woman doesn't just go for kids but everyone, including Mexican elders. I saw her later in the shop shouting at a poor Mexican family because they were blocking the meat area. She was yelling at them that they should move because she was American and therefore she was in charge. And I just want to say that respect should be earned, never given because of your age, race or status. We are all human beings and should treat each other as such. Yeah, nicely said. 40-year-old yells at 16-year-old cashier because she didn't touch his hand when she gave him his change. Okay, so this is my first post to Reddit, so I hope y'all will be patient with me and my formatting. I'm also using my phone, so please excuse any typos. Me is me, RC is rude customer, GM is manager. Also note, the RC is a 6 foot tall man in around what appears to be his 40s and I was a 5'2" extremely petite girl. Several years ago I got my first job ever. I was 16 and had been homeschooled, so I was a nervous wreck with major anxiety issues, especially in social situations. I had begun as a server at a pizzeria and did very well, so they decided to cross-train me as a cashier as well. After some training I was left alone on the register. Not a big deal as I knew my codes. The night was pretty typical and nothing in particular had happened. Most customers were just normal and didn't really give me any issues until rude customer walks in. He had placed an order over the phone to pick up a pizza, but the second he walks in, he struts over to the register and says his last name in an already really harsh tone. I hadn't heard his name clearly, so I replied with, "Pardon?" and he repeats louder and slower, now with an angry expression. I go to the back quickly to grab his order and bring it out. I tell him his total and he hands me cash, so I cash it out and hand him back his change. This is when he explodes. I placed the change in his hand over the receipt, but being a germaphobe, I didn't directly touch his hand to do so, but I was not even an inch away when I turned my hand over to drop it in his hand and he starts yelling. "Don't ever throw money at me again. What is wrong with you? Where the hell is your manager?" My co-worker who was standing next to me at this time rushes off to the back office to get our manager while I'm left there trembling. "You are so rude. How do you expect to go anywhere with that attitude? You will never amount to anything." I would love to tell you I lost my cool and fired back, or that my manager rushed to my aid and defended me, but neither of those things happened. When my manager does walk up, he inquires as to what happened. "Well, your little worker here has been nothing but rude to me for no reason and threw my change back at me. I don't know how you get any business with this kind of people working at the register." "I'm sorry, sir, she's new. Is there anything we can do to make this right?" Now I'm already shaking and sobbing and now getting angry. I didn't mean to do anything wrong, and when the rude customer leaves, even my co-worker defends me to my manager and tells him what happened because I couldn't. He tells us he believes us, but that there really wasn't much he could do. I understood, but I was still very upset. The man didn't get any extra compensation, as all he demanded was that I get trained better or I get fired when he left. I understand why my manager did what he did, but even to this day I'm left dumbfounded how people can be so rude for no reason. You're young, so let me force you to pay $2,000 for something you didn't do. Kinda long, TLDR at the end. Sorry if this comes across kinda all over the place, even now the story confuses the heck out of me. To start, some context. So I live in a pretty nice condo building, like half of the cars in the parking garage are luxury made kinda nice, so lots of entitled people. Owners of units or occasionally renters are provided with a single parking space in the underground garage. As a resident of the building, I naturally have one. If a unit isn't rented out yet, whoever owns and is renting it out naturally has access to the parking spot too. Another important point before we get to the meat of this is that I'm not one of those people who has a luxury car. Not that I don't have a decent car, but moving on. I have a Volkswagen Tiguan. If you've ever seen one, they're not huge, but not small either, and they're certainly not low to the ground. On to the story. So the winter after I moved into the building, my best friend and I were on our way out of the parking garage to go for a shopping trip at a mall about 45 minutes away. As per normal, I was weaving my way up from one of the lower levels to the level that accesses the street. Between the resident parking and the exit to the street is a sharp turn and then a gate so that visitors can't get to the resident section. The gate is not see-through, and the only way you can see if a car is coming in around the sharp turn is if they open the gate before you make the turn, because there's a mirror that is angled to see past the gate once it is opened. So I made the turn and approached the gate so the sensor would open to let me out. Directly in front of me was a fancy white car. We both just sat there, staring, waiting for the other to move. Because of the turn, it is polite and much more safe for the person in his position to reverse and let me through. Typically there's space for 2 cars to pass through, provided both cars are on their side of the road. Obviously, this guy was not. This entitled a-hole, henceforth EA, was just staring at me and his mouth was moving like he was shouting at me to move. I looked at my friend in the passenger seat and asked her to check my blind spots while I reversed around the very sharp turn. She agrees and I very slowly began to make the turn in reverse, which due to how narrow that part of the garage is, was difficult especially in my car. After carefully reversing, I was not yet in the right place for him to safely pass, but he didn't care. He began his turn to pass me. He got to the point of our cars nearly touching before he finally stopped trying to pass and waited impatiently trying to pass. I began to slowly and carefully reverse, drive to not hit his car. He passed me and I made one final small reverse to be in position to exit the garage. Suddenly his brakes screeched. I panicked. I thought I'd hit him. I was terrified. I put my car in park right there and looked at my rear view when I saw him approaching my car in a huff. My best friend and I get out of my car. We're both scared crapless. I'm nearly in tears because I don't want any trouble, and he has a ready to kill look in his eyes. He walks up, notices my fear and changes demeanour, something I now know was a tactic. Conversation is paraphrased. "You hit my car." "Where?" He leads me to his car, grabs a rag from his trunk and wipes the snow off the top of his wheel well, revealing a small scratch. Gears start turning in my head, but I could barely process them in my panic about everything going on. Remember how I mentioned my car was higher off the ground than a lot in the garage? Well, his was one of the shorter ones, and I knew at that instant it couldn't have been me. My car is way too high off the ground to have scratched that tiny spot and not caused serious damage to a much higher section. But I also know a decent amount about cars and repairing them. One thing I know is that if you have that small of a scratch, you can buy touch-up paint from your dealer for less than $100 and fix it yourself. Okay, here. Let's exchange information. I'll pay for the touch-up paint. Perfect. Pull into these 2 empty spots so we can set it up. We do just that. He gets my info. Due to my severe anxiety, I can barely think at that point, so I forget to get his. Big mistake on my part. I didn't even remember to take pictures of the supposed damage. He leaves. I get in my car and my best friend spends the whole drive to the mall combating my concerns so I won't have a full-on panic attack. Fast forward a couple of days. He contacts me. EA asks if I know a shop that can do the repairs. I think that's odd since it's just a scratch. I suggest the place my car got repaired at last time it needed it as well, as reminding him that he can get touch-up paint from his dealership for a small price. He gets back to me 3 days later with 2 quotes. One for $600, which he told me was too low. The other was $2,000, which he thought was a bit high, but seemed more reasonable. My anxiety took over. I had a full-on breakdown. I called my parents in tears asking them what to do. I had enough for a $50 can of touch-up paint, but not for a $2,000 job. My parents tell me to give him their information, since I am still on their insurance and that they'll be dealing with him from now on. EA during this time had emailed me several times during this period, threatening legal action if I did not meet him and pay for his repairs quickly. My parents told me to report the incident to the cops, so I do just that. I go file a police report. As I'm filling out the paperwork, I notice what truly makes this man an EA. The quotes he had sent me for the repairs, they were for a different car. He claimed I hit his luxury foreign sports car. The quotes were for a regular Joe kind of car. The quotes were to essentially to replace the entire left side of the car. This man was trying to extort a young woman with major anxiety disorders for free repairs on a car she didn't even go near. Woman gets banned from store because she can't buy liquor. This happened in my line at the store I work at a couple of weeks ago. The cast are me, your friendly neighbourhood cashier, EL, entitled lady, CSM, customer service manager, AM, assistant manager. Backstory. At my store's location, we weren't allowed to sell any alcoholic beverages after 10 PM, and this has been a major headache since we got our liquor license. Story. This takes place around 11 to 11:30 PM, so it's well past our sell-by time when I see EL set some champagne on my conveyor belt and pull out her phone. Me. Grabs the champagne and puts it behind my counter. I'm sorry, but we're not allowed to sell alcoholic beverages after 10 o'clock. I just googled it and it says federal law says 2, so you have to sell it to me. Yes, federal law does say 2 o'clock, but each city and state can make their own laws as long as they don't violate federal law. I want to speak to your manager. I put in a request on my manager that I need assistance and continue to help the customer that was in front of Entitled Lady. By the time Entitled Lady is the next customer service manager comes up and asks how she can help. Entitled Lady points her phone at customer service manager and tells her the same thing she told me. In the meantime, I try to get started on the next transaction since Entitled Lady only brought up a bottle of champagne I wouldn't be able to buy for obvious reasons. What do you think you're doing? I'm next in line and you shouldn't ring up someone else until you sell me my drink. I, not being able to do anything without escalating the situation, just stop and watch as I wait for her to leave. I'm sorry, but we're not allowed to sell you alcoholic beverages. Give me your name and employee ID number. I'm going to report you. My name is this, and I don't have to give you my employee ID number. Yes, you do. I do not. Yes, you do. I do not. Entitled Lady suddenly grabs the champagne from across the counter, faster than customer service manager could stop her. I'm taking this. So you're just gonna steal it now? At this point, I start ringing up the next customer to get the lines down since Entitled Lady was clearly no longer focused on me. I'm going to report you, you fat witch. Customer service manager, no longer willing to deal with Entitled Lady, turns around and calls for security on her radio. About a minute later, assistant manager walks up and asks what's going on, and Entitled Lady goes over to her and starts ranting at her. By this point, I'm no longer paying attention to what's being said since I'm taking care of other customers. Another minute passes of assistant manager dealing with Entitled Lady, and I hear glass shatter from Entitled Lady throwing the champagne on the floor near assistant manager. I look over and see 2 associates herding other customers away from broken glass and spilt champagne as assistant manager follows Entitled Lady to the door. You are no longer welcome in this store. Please leave and do not come back. By the time assistant manager gets to where Entitled Lady threw the bottle, there were 4 associates there cleaning up the mess. I've actually seen something really similar happen in a supermarket near me. The cashier refused to sell a man 12 cans of beer, so he threw them on the floor and tried stomping on them. No one really reacted though, since the man just walked out after that. Ah, good old Belfast. Okay, so that's all for r/Entitled People. I really hope you did enjoy it. As always, if you do want to see more content like this, then please do subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!